Good evening. My name is Marisa Bono, Chief Strategic Officer for Via Metropolitan Transit. Buenas tardes. Oprima estrella cero, ahora para escuchar en español. Thank you for joining our live interactive telephone town hall series. Tonight's topic is focused on access to opportunity, particularly education and workforce development through transit. This event and others will give us a chance to speak directly with you tonight and answer as many of your questions as possible. For our phone participants, we'd like to invite you to watch the live stream by visiting keepamoving.com. Scroll down to the streaming player toward the bottom of the page. I'm very excited tonight to host this conversation with you and our outstanding panel. We have with us tonight Jeff Arndt, the President and CEO of Via Metropolitan Transit, Delia McLerran, Head of Schools for the Young Women's Leadership Academy, and Dr. Mike Flores, Chancellor of the Alamo Colleges District. Jeff, Delia, Mike, thank you for being here with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to a robust conversation and hope you'll dial *3 to enter the queue and ask questions live on this call. Oprima estrella cero, ahora para escuchar en español. As I mentioned, this is an interactive forum. We'd love to hear from you. We'll take as many questions as we can tonight at this event. If you have a question, press *3 on your phone keypad at any time. You're going to speak to a member of our staff. And then the next time you hear your voice, hear your name, you will be live on the air to ask your question to one of our panelists. If you're streaming the event on our website, just type your name and question below the streaming player. Okay, let's get started. Delia, I'd like to start with you. You were the founding principal of the Young Women's Leadership Academy, an all-girls college preparatory campus with 6th through 12th grade. And you're now head of schools because you've expanded and you have a primary campus as well. YWLA is routinely recognized as one of the best schools in the state and even in the country. And it draws students from across the San Antonio Independent School District and beyond. So girls travel from all over the state to attend school at YWLA. We've had the good fortune to visit this year with one of your former students, the 2020 salutatorian, Maria Garcia. She shared her incredibly moving story with us. Maria rode via buses to and from school every day of her academic career and is now on full academic scholarship at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, better known as MIT. So would love to hear your perspective based on Maria's story and your experience as a principal and a school leader. Just how important is transit service for your students and your families?
Transit services are very, very important for our students. So like other SAISD schools, we are a choice school. And what that means that any young woman in Bexar County can apply to our school and can become a future Cardinal. One of the things that we have found is that when we have this opportunity for students, if it wasn't for VIA and our buses, then many of the students who live outside of the SAISD district would not be able to get to our school. So like Maria, she would take the bus every day and then take the VIA bus to an SAISD bus stop, or she would take VIA straight to our school. So what VIA does is to connect our girls with incredible opportunities. As you mentioned earlier, our school is a college prep academy, and Maria was able to come to our school because of the access that was provided to her by VIA. So once Maria did her due diligence and did everything that she needed to do to be the excellent student that she was able to apply to incredible universities. And our goal is to have our students go to whatever Tier 1 university they choose to go to. Had it not been for VIA, then she would not have been connected to the educational opportunities. And what VIA has done is allowed her to not be limited. And our goal is to have more students to unlock that potential, just like we want parents and families outside of SAISD to experience our choice schools. The leveling is not just for students. we have found that our families who are unable to afford transportation either through a car or other means, they are using VIA to become a part of our school. They are able to take VIA to our school events, whether it's a concert, whether it's a dance recital, whether it's them coming to school for a conference. If it wasn't for VIA, then they would not be able to, one, enjoy the many opportunities that their daughters are having on campus, and then they would also not be able to be a part of a community. So because of VIA, our parents are able to connect and build community with our families. So it's not just what VIA is doing for students, it's what VIA is doing for our parents. And in essence, they're changing the trajectory for our students and their families.
Thank you. And for those of us who are listening or perhaps just joined us, we do have that video interview on our website, keepusamoving.com, which also features you, Delia. Again, this is Delia McLerran. She's the school leader for the Young Women's Leadership Academy. In that video, you discuss that level of dependence that students on your campus have for VIA. Thank you again for being here with us tonight. And for those who just joined us, we have about 3,000 participants on the call tonight. This is an interactive forum. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be taking as many questions from participants as we possibly can live tonight. Just press *3 and you'll be put into the queue to ask your question. You'll speak with a member of our staff, and then the next time you hear your name, you will be live to ask your question directly to one of our panelists. All right, Mike Flores, I'd like to kick it over to you now. We have Dr. Mike Flores with us. He's the Chancellor for Alamo Community Colleges, and the Alamo College's mission is to empower our diverse communities for success. Dr. Flores, how does the Alamo Colleges foster community partnerships to help people overcome barriers to access and success in higher education? And what is Alamo Colleges and VIA doing to help our community navigate past those barriers?
Good evening, and thank you, Marisa. I think one of the things is when we focus specifically on mobility, looking at actual transit and what that provides. So we're really pleased to have partnered with VIA. We have 69,000 students that are enrolled this semester, a record high. And each of our students is provided with a U-Pass. So they can access VIA any day that they would like, and they can use that obviously through their app and through their phone, and be able through the VIA Mobile Go app to gain access. I think the other part is just looking at mobility, and in particular when we talk about economic mobility and how critical that is. We see the challenges that many of our students confront, and we want to ensure that we provide them with support not only in the classroom, working with faculty to pursue their passion, but also outside of the classroom, partnering with organizations such as VIA, where transportation may be a challenge to our students, being able to provide additional wraparound support services. Perhaps there's food insecurity, and then we partner with the San Antonio Food Bank, access to medical appointments, and we now do that through telemedicine with UT Health School of Nursing. So I think what is critical for us in our partnership with VIA is that we access mobility. That could be actual mobility through transit. That could be ensuring that they gain access through economic mobility. For each and every one of our students, once they earn their credential, the personal return on investment for them is close to $10,000 annually and $500,000 in their lifetime. So we value this partnership that we have with VIA, and with as a full ecosystem of support, all of us working together to ensure that each and every one of our students has the economic and social mobility that's going to be a better life for themselves and oftentimes for their family members.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Flores. You know, when we're out in the community, frequent feedback we get is many people don't realize that students in middle school and high school, and also students who are in college, access the bus just to get to class, just to get to school. And when we at VIA heard that the lack of transportation was one of those barriers, when we got that feedback, from you, Dr. Flores, at Alamo colleges, and also from a number of other local universities. When we heard that the lack of transportation impacted a student's ability to complete their education, the VIA Board of Trustees approved a program that you referenced called UPass, making it affordable for colleges and universities to offer free access to VIA service. So the UPass provides students free transit service currently for students who are currently enrolled in area colleges and universities. We have a number of participating colleges and universities in addition to Alamo College District, but 43, almost 44,000 students have the UPass at Alamo colleges, and we have similar numbers at UTSA, the University of Incarnate Word, and Our Lady of the Lake University. And I should add that the UPass is available not just for students, but also for faculty. Okay, looks like we have about 3,300 participants on the phone with us tonight. Thank you for joining us. If you have a question that you'd like to ask live, go ahead and press *3. And we are lucky enough tonight to have Jeff Arndt. He's the president and CEO of VIA. Jeff, welcome tonight. Great to see you again. It's your job to oversee the day-to-day operations of all of VIA's transit services. You've seen firsthand how transit is the direct conduit to access to opportunity, whether that's in K-12 education, higher education, workforce development, and better paying jobs. Can you talk to us a little bit about the critical nature of transit and how you approach ensuring that as many San Antonians as possible have access to opportunity?
Absolutely. So first of all, I would like to thank Delia and Mike for joining us tonight. You both are stars in the space, in the education space. You both, I'm sure, are going to be able to relate to what I have to say, which is how exciting, Delia, how exciting is it when Maria gets a full scholarship to MIT and you know what the future can hold for her? It's so awesome. So I'd like to start with kind of a story that ties transit and workforce and education together. At the opening of the second bibliothèque, there was a young man who approached me and thanked me for VIA, which is always a little awkward because, you know, there's a lot of people at VIA, not just me. But he told me the story that his mother was a single mother. He believes he was probably riding the bus from nearly the moment he was born. He took the bus to and from school. His mother took the bus to and from work. At one point, his mother decided she wanted to avail herself of other educational opportunity. And he said that she would take the bus to and from school, and she got her bachelor's degree. And then she was on fire, and she got her master's degree, and then she was really on fire, and she got a doctorate. And of course, with each of those progressions, her work position definitely improved. In the meantime, he's now college age. He had just completed his bachelor's and was about to start to pursue his master's. And he was using VIA to get to and from school. So, I mean, just that story. Now, he did share, I have to tell everyone, he said, but I have to tell you, my mom bought a car. And I told him, that's all right. It happens in a lot of families, you know. So in any case, how exciting. All of us on this call tonight have this opportunity to contribute to the transformation of people's lives. And to pick up somewhat on what Mike had to say, I would say, and I'm going to paraphrase my board chair, Hope Andrade, there is no economic mobility without physical mobility. And that's what VIA is all about. The challenge we have is we have a large area to serve, and our jobs and our employment opportunities and our education opportunities and our training opportunities all are spread fairly broadly throughout the area. So in order to provide the maximum access to opportunity, we spread our service throughout the area. Now, what that results in is my peanut butter story, which is that we have a certain amount of peanut butter based upon the sales tax we bring in, about 188 million each year, and that has to spread across our area. For comparison, the transit authority in Texas that has the has the service area that's most similar to ours is Houston Metro. And to our 188, they bring in 758. So now imagine we each have the same size piece of bread, and I have a quarter cup of peanut butter, and they have a full cup of peanut butter, and the difference in the quality of the sandwich we make. And that's really kind of the repercussion of trying to provide the coverage with the resources we have.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. And I actually have our first caller on the line with us tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and bring him live. Dean, go ahead. You're live.
Well, I want to ask if there are any plans to make the buses run later, because I knew a lot of people, they would get jobs, but the buses don't run that late. In Houston, they run 24 hours a day.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean. So Jeff, if you could answer his question directly first, and then I'd like to, after you're done, shift it to Delia and get her thoughts on what later service means for students and families in the education context.
So I'll go back to the example of Houston versus San Antonio and the 188 versus 758. That's what permits, that funding is what really permits for Houston Metro to run all that service. We are more challenged, and so that is part of the reason why our span of service is less. But we do have a plan, I think we'll talk about shortly, Keep SA Moving, that includes addressing the issue of a broader span of service, as well as increased frequency during the middle of the day, peak hours, and more weekend service. So we do have a plan that will head us in that direction.
Thank you. Delia, thoughts on, so just to be clear, I think that's also a common comment that we get. What about more extended hours? What about service in the evenings? What about service on the weekends? What are your thoughts based on your experience on what the type of increase in access would mean for your students and families?
I know that there's definitely a need, and I'm going to speak from the experiences that our students have at YWLA. So for example, if we had additional extended hours, then students could participate in the evening programs. They could also, right now, if we have an event on Saturday, our students are taking the VIA to get to school, whether it's for science fair, whether it's for a game. But if we had extended hours in the evening, I know that not only, again, our students, but our families would be able to participate in activities after hours. I know that our students also have a need for access to the internet. And so sometimes they have to come to school. I know that VIA is also doing some incredible things to give our students access there. But any hour that you could extend, I know that our families would take it because of the rigor that our schools have, and our commitment is to have our students prepared for a college prep academy, making sure that they have that preparation. And if we have the transportation that connects them to the school, then they will be prepared for the college that they choose. So I can guarantee you that they will be accessing, if you extend the hours, any bus route that can get them to YWLA.
Thank you. Dr. Flores, I know many students at Alamo colleges both go to school and then pay for school by working part-time, or in some cases even full-time. Any thoughts or feedback on what those extended hours might be for the students on your campuses?
Sure, Marisa. I think what's critical is being able to provide access and easy access. So of our 69,000 students, the majority of students work, and they work an average of 30 hours a week. So they want the full undergraduate experience, right, that any individual would want in American higher education. There's courses, there's extra or co-curricular activities, perhaps for student employment on campus. There's readings in the evening, now virtual. So they want to go to all those activities, but many of our students also have other considerations with their life. It could be, as you mentioned, to go to work. Could actually be to take transit, take the bus to be able to go pick up their children from school, or to be able to pick up their children from childcare. All of those things are considerations that our students have, being able to have access to education, to employment, and also meeting the needs of other family members within their household.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. That was the Chancellor of Alamo Colleges. And welcome to those who just joined us. We now have about 3,500 participants live with us this evening. Just a reminder, this is an interactive forum. If you'd like to ask your question live, press *3. You will speak to a member of our staff, and then the next time you hear your name, you will be live. So press *3 if you have a question. And Jeff, you referenced it earlier in your answer to Dean's question, one of our live callers, and there's a lot of buzz out there about VIA's initiative on the ballot and VIA's Keep SA Moving plan, which is available with details at keepsamoving.com. Can you just give everyone who's joined us tonight a brief overview on what exactly is on the ballot and what VIA would do with new funding if the measure passes?
Sure. So first of all, on the ballot initiative is called Proposition A Advanced Transportation District, as created by the VIA Metropolitan Transit Authority. And the request on the ballot is that 1/8 of 1 cent sales tax be redirected to VIA for implementation of the Keep San Antonio Moving Plan effective January 1st, 2026. This ballot initiative, there are 3 Prop A's if you're in the city of San Antonio and in San Antonio Independent School District, 3 Prop A's. So be aware of that. You have to watch for each of those Prop A's. They're at the end of the ballot, but having voted early, I can tell you that making your way through the ballot is not quite as onerous as I think that many had expected or foreseen. So at that point in the ballot, you express your opinion about whether you're for or against that 1/8 cent being redirected. And again, that's a redirection, so there is no net increase in sales tax. It would fund the Keep San Antonio Moving Plan, which has, I think, 3 major elements. The first is increasing the frequency and night service and weekend service, so much of what we've just been speaking about within the core bus network. And the second is increasing mobility on demand, which is a rideshare type system that we currently operate in only one 17 square mile area, where you call, as effectively it's like Uber or Lyft. You call for a trip, you get a vehicle dispatched to you. It's a van, not a bus. It's perfectly suited for areas that are not as densely developed and roadway networks that are not necessarily complete. We have been very pleased with the success. And so I call it my 30-30 story. With the Keep SA Moving Plan, we would increase the number of square miles by 30%. So that means the people in those areas currently have no service. They have 0 transit service, and they would have mobility on demand, which is accessible. So people that have transportation needs who are disabled would be able to make use of that service. And the other side of the 30% is that we're able to do it for 30% less cost per passenger, which allows us to spread that service more. And so this is a way in which we provide more access than what we currently do. The last piece is advanced rapid transit and other capital investment. Advanced rapid transit is where we have a dedicated lane and we have an advanced rapid transit vehicle, rubber tired. Let's be very clear about that. It's not a rail system, but it operates very much like a rail system. Higher speed, very frequent, very reliable because you have your dedicated lane. And the Keep SA Moving Plan and those dollars that are on the ballot would help us continue to advance planning of those projects and to pursue federal funds to help construct ART in our region for the first time.
Thanks for that overview, Jeff. And for those who are interested, there are more details about the Keep SA Moving Plan. Just go to keepsamoving.com and you can take a look. It's an interactive website full of great informative features. All right, everyone, we want to hear from you. We have over almost 3,600 participants with us tonight, so thank you for joining us. If you'd like to ask a question live, just press *3 on your telephone keypad. So I'm going to ask a quick poll question before we go to our next live caller. If you're on the phone, you can vote by pressing the corresponding number on your keypad. If you're online, you can vote by selecting your response below the streaming player. And the question is, while other cities such as Dallas, Austin, and Houston have a full 1 cent in local sales tax dedicated to public transit, San Antonio's public transportation system is the only large metro authority in Texas to operate on a 1/2 cent sales tax. Do you believe that redirecting an existing 1/8 cent sales tax will help San Antonio better fund local transportation efforts? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, press 3 for unsure. The question is, do you believe that redirecting an existing 1/8 cent sales tax will help San Antonio better fund local transportation efforts? 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for unsure. And while we tally up those poll results, I'll go ahead and bring our next caller live. Kenneth, go ahead. You're live.
Yes, thank you for taking my question. I just wondered what happens if the workforce portion of this proposition fails, but the advanced transportation portion passes.
Thanks for your question, Kenneth. Jeff, would you like to take that one?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you. So those two initiatives are completely independent, right? And so if the VIA initiative did pass, but the workforce development did not pass, what that would mean is it would not change anything with respect to our plan nor the timing of our plan. On January 1st, 2026, we would begin receiving a 1/8 cent sales tax. In between the completion of the current sales tax allocation and that date, conceivably, either the state sales tax would drop by 1/8 cent for some period of time, or there would be other initiatives that could be brought before the voters. So whether workforce succeeds or does not succeed does not impact VIA's receipt of those sales tax funds.
That's right. The items are complementary but completely independent from each other. And Jeff, a question we get frequently is when that redirected 1/8 cent sales tax comes to VIA, if Proposition 8 passes on January 1st, 2026, why does it have to come to VIA in perpetuity? That's a question we hear a lot from the community. Why does it have to be indefinite? Why can't we cap it at 4 or 5 years like some of our other tax programs?
Well, MTAs and even the ATD were set up to help fund operation of systems and operating costs. It's kind of like your electric bill. You have them month after month after month. And so as you put service out there, you have to be able to sustain that service. And that's why the legislature, when they created the MTA authority and when they created the ATD authority for taxation, they put no time limit because they understood that it's an operating type cost. Now, to frame that up, though, let's talk about the 8 1/4 cent sales tax that we have in Bexar County. So the state gets 6 1/4, and that is in perpetuity. And the city gets 1 cent, and that is in perpetuity. And VIA gets a 1/2 cent, and that is in perpetuity. And the Advanced Transportation District gets a 1/4 cent, of which VIA gets a portion, and that is in perpetuity. So really, for the most part, the sales tax initiatives are in perpetuity. And if you go to Houston, Dallas, or Austin, everything is in perpetuity because they have the 1 cent for the city and they have the 1 cent for the MTA, and that's that. But it's really so that we can sustain the service improvements we make.
Thank you, Jeff. And again, just to remind our listeners this evening, Dallas, Austin, and Houston, which Jeff just referenced, have access to a full 1 cent in local sales tax dedicated to public transit. They get that tax in perpetuity, that tax revenue in perpetuity. San Antonio's public transportation system is the only large metro authority in Texas to operate on a 1/2 cent sales tax. And we asked our listeners this evening if they believed that redirecting an existing 1/8 cent sales tax would help San Antonio better fund local transportation efforts. And 71% of our participants tonight said yes, they believe that's true. 9% said no, they don't believe that's true. And 20% said that they're unsure. And so if you'd like more information on these topics and more, feel free to go to keepusamoving.com to get more information so you can inform yourself as you go along. And again, we have over 3,600 participants this evening, over 3,700 participants on our call this evening. Thank you for joining us. This is a live interactive event. If you'd like to ask your question live, just press *3 on your telephone keypad. You will be met with a member of our staff. They'll screen your question, and the next time you hear your name, we will be live. And I'll go ahead and go to our next live caller now. We have Peter with us tonight. Go ahead, Peter, you're live.
Yes, my question was concerning our institutions here that have multiple campuses. I was a student at Alamo colleges a while back, and sometimes would have classes at different campuses on the same day. So let's say I would start the day at SAC, and then would have an afternoon class at St. Philip's, and an evening class at Palo Alto. The only way that you could get between the campuses was to go all the way downtown, and then then have to take the bus back out, sometimes to the very part of town that you want to reach, but could do it in a much quicker way, quicker if all the campuses had shuttles that ran between them. So if somebody had a class at SAC in the morning and wanted St. Philip's in the afternoon, they could go directly to the St. Philip's campus without having to go downtown. And I'm just wondering if, I think if there is shuttle service like what I'm describing between the UT downtown and the UT main campus, and would love to see other institutions such as ACCD implement, a shuttle system. And so
Thank you, Peter. And we actually have the Chancellor of Alamo Colleges with us tonight. It's Dr. Mike Flores. Any thoughts on that, Dr. Flores? Pretty good idea.
So I think that one of the challenges we have is accessibility, right? So transit accessibility. So we want to ensure that it's convenient for our current students to be able to take courses physically when we return physically once again to all of the colleges and our regional centers. So any enhancements that could be provided directly through VIA, that's why we partnered with VIA and purchased access for all of our 69,000 students this semester, and we'll continue to do so. I think the other is to talk with Jeff and his team at VIA to see if there are other ways that we can pursue those enhancements. So I think that would really be key moving forward to ensure that it is accessible, right? We want to eliminate as many hurdles that any of our students would have, and that's a journey that we've been on for several years.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm sure you have some thoughts to add there, especially when it comes to frequency improvements in the Keep SA Moving plan.
Certainly. So, one of the challenges when one is making transit trips is that about half of the people make transfers. And so frequency really drives the duration of the trip in many respects, because if you are connecting to a bus that runs only once an hour, and we unfortunately have a significant number of buses that run once an hour, and you just miss that bus, you've just added an hour to your travel time. And so one of the big elements of Keep SA Moving is to focus on increasing frequency in our prime corridor, so that if you do have to make those transfers are pretty quick and far more convenient. And we know, based upon our experience, we know that increased frequency increases ridership. The city of San Antonio provides us $10 million a year, and that $10 million is dedicated specifically to increasing frequency on selected routes. When we implemented those increases, we saw ridership jump 25-30% on routes that went to a 12-minute frequency. So we know that worked. We know with the Primo service that we operate, that runs every 10 to 12 minutes, that works. It makes the service attractive, not just, and it makes it more convenient for people that are currently riding, and more attractive for people that are not currently riding, or perhaps for the million people that are headed our way over the next 20 years.
Thank you, Jeff. And also want to remind our participants tonight that the Keep SA Moving plan would expand our mobility on demand service from 17 square miles on the northeast part of town to 300 square miles all around the city. And so hopefully that expansion would also help students who are trying to get from campus to campus to make their classes. Okay, for those of us who have joined us this evening, we have over 3,700 participants live on our program this evening. If you'd like to ask your question live with one of our panelists, just press *3 on your telephone keypad. And Delia, I'm about to go to our next poll question, but before I do, I'd love to get your thoughts. Earlier today, you shared the story of Maria Garcia, one of your students who used VIA to get to school almost every day for 5 or 6 years before she graduated at the top of her class and got a full scholarship to MIT. Is her story unique on your campus? Would love to see, what your observations have been over the years in terms of access for your students and transit.
So throughout the years, we've had a steady anywhere from 30 to 35% of our students who use VIA to get to our school. And what we find is that once they know what route to take, how to get to school, then it becomes much easier for them. What also happens is that then they talk about our school to other young women who are in their neighborhood, and it's about talking about the opportunities that they have to come to a college prep academy. But the other thing that I'm listening to what VIA does for colleges, and I'm also wanting to share that there have been several times where we as educators have been in a crunch for field trips. And I can recall different times where we had to take students and buses are tight for districts, but we have jumped on a VIA bus and taken students on field trips throughout San Antonio. Many of our students here have not been to the Alamo. Many of our students have not been to different universities here. So it is definitely a huge plus that we can jump on a VIA bus and take our students to universities and bring them to new opportunities here in our city. But for our students who are coming from different cultures, whether it's an economic culture, whether it's an ethnic culture, what VIA does is it allows them to come to YWLA to connect their cultures, to have different experiences that they otherwise would not have. What VIA does for educators is that it gives us options when we are tight on budgets, and when the district doesn't have enough buses to make these field trips happen, we can still count on VIA to come through for us when it comes to field trips. So those types of opportunities that are made available to our students because of VIA are priceless. And so I am, grateful that we are able to depend on VIA when we need them, that our families are able to depend on them to get to a school like YWLA, who then prepares them to go to schools like MIT, Yale, and other great universities across this country. But if it wasn't for VIA, I can tell you easily it would be about 30% of students who would be limited as to what opportunities they would have educationally.
30%, and that's on your campus alone. It doesn't even
Yes.
include students from across SAISD. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Delia. And so I'd like to go ahead and go to our next poll question. The question is, the Keep SA Moving Plan will maintain, improve, and fund VIA transit services, which have become increasingly essential for improved education and workforce development as we rebound from a global pandemic. Maybe this isn't a question. This is a statement. The statement is, the Keep SA Moving Plan will maintain, improve, and fund VIA transit services, which have become increasingly essential for improved education and workforce development in light of the pandemic. Press 1 if you agree, press 2 if you disagree, and press 3 if you're unsure. And while we tally up those poll results, I'll go ahead and go to our next live caller. Karen, go ahead. You're on the air. Are you there, Karen? Okay, well, I'm not sure what happened. I think Karen may not realize that she's live or hasn't been able to get through, but her question was, she says, usually VIA is around during special events and also around the city, but what about buses that will take people directly to the polls around the city? Jeff, is VIA doing anything related to the election and helping voters get to the polls?
Yes, one of the primary things that VIA does, and our board of directors passed this policy, I believe back in 2016, is we provide free service to the polls on election day. And so with a voter's registration card, that becomes your pass to using the system. If you use Viatrans, you also get free service that day to the polls. You still have to reserve your trip, like all Viatrans trips are reserved, but you do get free service. And the same thing with Via Link, the service that we operate as a mobility on demand type project. So all of our services are offered for free on the day of election to people who have a voter's registration card and use that as their fare.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Jeff. And we just a moment ago, we asked our second poll question of the night. It was not a question, it was a statement. And the statement was the Keep SA Moving Plan will maintain, improve, and fund via transit services, which have become increasingly essential for improved education and workforce development as we rebound from the global pandemic. And 74% of our participants tonight said they agree. 4% said they disagree, and 22% said they were unsure. Dr. Flores, we have the Chancellor of Alamo Colleges on with us tonight. Any thoughts on what VIA's role and the role of public transit will be in the context of improving education and workforce development opportunities for San Antonio?
Sure, Marisa. I think as discussed earlier, we have two challenges as a community, right? We have the challenge of transit. The transit is accessible. I think the other is we have the challenge of talent. We do not produce enough local talent in our community. We have 50% of graduating high school seniors actually enroll in a college or university, any college or university within our community. We have, if we look at the 150,000 folks that are unemployed or displaced right now as a result of COVID, 50,000 of those individuals do not have a GED or a high school diploma. Another 50,000 of those individuals do not have a college degree, but have 1, 2, or 3 years of college. So how can we work together and partner to ensure that we address those challenges? One, with regard to transit, and the other with regard to talent, producing enough local talent. And so I think that we have talked about that this evening. I think that the Keep SA Moving Plan also details that. And I know that there are ongoing conversations related to workforce development as well within the city. We're fortunate right now to partner with the city of San Antonio and with Bexar County with regard to providing a credential and training for a credential for individuals displaced by COVID. So I think that those two challenges, and we have an opportunity before us to be able to address both of those. One, transit and accessible transit, right, long term. And then the other is talent. How can we produce more local talent in our community so we can provide economic and social mobility?
I think it's so interesting that you're on the higher education end of the spectrum, and then we have Delia McLerran with us on the K-12 end of the spectrum. And both of you were saying the same thing, that we have some incredible students and some incredible talent right here in our community. But the key is unlocking that talent, giving those populations the opportunities they need to really thrive and meet their full potential. It makes a lot of sense. So I'd like to go ahead and go to our next live caller. Roger, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Roger. I'd like to leave a message for Jeffrey. I've tried to call him in his office, and I've called administrative. They connected with me, and somebody refuses to connect me with your CEO. But my big problem is, on the east side of San Antonio, you have a van over here in Nacogdoches and O'Connor. I think they charge $2 to take you to the grocery store or wherever you have to go. Is there any chance we can put this over here on the east side of San Antonio around 1604 and 10? I am disabled and my income isn't much of anything, and I'm handicapped. Can y'all help me?
Thank you. Thank you for your call, Roger. And I actually have your number here. I'm going to follow up with you after the show to try to help you directly to get access to some of our services. But we actually have the CEO with us live. He just heard your question. And Jeff, would love to hear your thoughts about expansion of Via Trans and also mobility on demand on the east side of San Antonio.
So yes, we have within those, we talked earlier that we'll go from 17 square miles to 300 square miles of mobility on demand, and all of that service is accessible. So that results in this 30% increase in service to the community. So there are people, as I said, who currently don't have service that would have service. And the fare just is even better than $2. The fare is the same as the local bus fare, which is $1.30. And persons with disabilities ride for half fare. So the fare for one of these mobility on demand trips is extremely reasonable, and that is a big component of Keep SA Moving.
Thank you. And just a reminder that our mobility on demand service is fully ADA accessible. The Keep SA Moving plan is designed to expand our service area by 30%. And so any service expansion for VIA means an equivalent expansion for Via Trans, which is VIA's paratransit service for those who, due to their mobility challenges, can't necessarily use our general bus service. All right, we have almost 3,800 participants on the call with us today. Thank you for joining us. Just a reminder, this is an interactive forum. If you'd like to ask your question live, you can press *3 on your keypad at any time. You'll speak with a member of our staff, and the next time you hear your name, you will be live. And before we go to our next caller, I'd like to get to our last poll question of the night. And it's another statement. So you're going to indicate whether you agree or disagree. And the statement is maintaining and improving a robust public transit system ensures that San Antonians have equitable access to opportunity, whether it's connecting to education, workforce training, or higher paying jobs. So the statement again is improving our public transit system will help ensure that San Antonians have equitable access to opportunity, whether it's connecting to education, workforce training, or higher paying jobs. What do you think? Press 1 if you agree, 2 if you disagree, and 3 if you're unsure. And while we tally up those poll results, I'd like to go ahead and go to our next live caller. Rebecca, go ahead, you're live.
Hi. Back in the 80s, I lived in Dallas, and I think it was the early 80s, and I worked for an attorney downtown, and it was very hard to find parking. He paid for my parking, and sometimes that lot where he paid for would already be full. So he switched and started paying for a bus pass. And basically, where I lived, it was a fast transit to downtown, where my stop was like the second to last stop, where it went completely downtown, and where it dropped me off was actually right in front of the building, and I walked right into the doors. So he got to write that bus pass off, and just like the parking place. So what I think we would do, and if more people would, or if more people knew that if they would pay for their employees' bus passes, and they knew that that was a write-off, and if VIA would advertise that, or like when Kelly was talking about that the other day, if they would pay for their people's parking or their buses instead of expecting it to be free, and they got to write that off, and they have, that's a write-off, so they're going to get that.
Thank you, Rebecca. Sorry to cut you off. We're getting close to the end of our time, and I wanted to see if we could get some other live callers live. But I think it's a great point, Jeff. Would you like to talk a little bit about our partnerships with local employers to
Absolutely.
Help make transit more accessible?
So we have a program called VIA Works, and that's exactly what that program is. We have people that go out meet with major employers, and we have various methods and levels of discounting, in fact, of our fare media to those employees. Two of the biggest takers of that are the city of San Antonio and Bexar County, where all of their Bear County, all of their employees have access to VIA, so they almost have the equivalent of a UPass. But yes, it's an excellent idea, and it's one that we currently are implementing throughout the city by meeting with major employers.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. And I have the results of our last poll question here. The statement was improving our public transit system will help ensure that San Antonians have equitable access to opportunity, whether it's connecting to education, workforce training, or higher paying jobs. And 94% of our participants tonight said they agree with that statement. 2% said they disagree, and 4% said they were unsure. Delia, you are the head of schools for the Young Women's Leadership Academy. What are your thoughts on that statement on the role of a robust public transit system for the purpose of ensuring that San Antonians have equitable access to opportunity?
So listening to everything that's been discussed tonight, it makes me think, Marisa, as teachers in the classroom, we are scaffolding and providing supports to our students so that they experience academic success. I think VIA and the city of San Antonio, when they provide access to transportation, it connects our students to opportunities. And what I've seen with my students who have graduated and gone on to college, they are now independent and they are able to have a life that they hadn't had before. So they are degreed women, they are employed women, they are getting their career started. And for many of them, if it hadn't started with VIA getting them to YWLA, then that access wouldn't have been there. If they had not had the opportunities that they had, then they wouldn't be the independent women that they are today. So I think it's a very true statement. If you have a transit system that is providing these connections for students, especially who are coming from economically challenged areas of town, to have access to a school like YWLA and then get their path going. I heard earlier Jeff mention that somebody then was independent enough to get a car. But isn't that what we want for everyone, to have access to great opportunities that will then provide them that independence, whether it's an economic independence that will then give them greater futures? So I think that through VIA, through the city of San Antonio, you're providing that support that individuals need. And then our goal is to help them become the independent, active citizens here in the city of San Antonio.
Thank you. That was Delia McLerran. She's the head of schools for the Young Women's Leadership Academy. Thank you for joining us tonight. Dr.
Yes.
Flores is the Chancellor for Alamo Community Colleges. What are your thoughts on the same statement, Dr. Flores? What is the role of maintaining and improving a robust public transit system for the purpose of ensuring that San Antonians have equitable access to opportunity?
Sure, Marisa. I think, as I noted earlier, I think one of the challenges and opportunities we have is actually transit has been a challenge, and we have an opportunity to enhance and provide accessible transit services to individuals in the community. That can be any one of our 69,000 students that are currently enrolled that have access to their UPass on their mobile app, right? Or so that they can study, so that they can engage, they can cross the finish line, which is earning a credential. And for us and for any of our graduates, that's close to $500,000 more in their lifetime. And students come to us seeking a better life, to affirm their footing in the American middle class, or to move into the American middle class. So we're proud to partner with VIA to provide that access through our UPass to all 69,000 of our students. And that's why they come to any one of our Alamo colleges as well, to seek a better life for them. So I just want to thank you, and I want to thank Jeff Arndt and his board, and we're proud to partner with VIA from the Alamo Colleges District.
Well, thank you for joining us, Dr. Flores, and thank you for being an invaluable community partner to VIA. And Jeff Arndt, our president and CEO of VIA Metro Transit. Jeff, would you like to offer our final thoughts for the evening?
Yeah, you know what? I'm struck by this. Education is and what we spend in education is an investment the community makes. And so despite the fact that I don't have any school-age children or college-age children, I am more than willing to contribute to our educational facilities, our school districts and our college districts, because that's an investment in the future of the community. And I think we've heard tonight many times over that investing in public transportation, whether you take the bus yourself or not, is a similar investment in in the public infrastructure and in the opportunity for this community. So we really are in much the same business. I always say that VIA is the vehicle, both literally and figuratively, to opportunity.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. I always go back to that saying from our board chair, Hope Andrade. She always says you can't have economic mobility without having actual mobility. And it's just so true. I think tonight's panel has really exemplified that. So we've come to the end of our live event this evening. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this important conversation. We appreciate the opportunity to speak directly with you and answer your questions. Now, if you weren't able to get to your question tonight, just leave a voicemail after this event, stay on the call when we end, and you will be transferred into our private voicemail system. You can also send us an email at keepsamoving@viainfo.net or call our office at 210-517-4715. Thank you again for joining us this evening. We will likely be hosting more of these events in the future, but in the meantime, you can learn more about our plans for the future at keepsamoving.com. Thank you again and have a great night.